This is Democracy Watch. So, Mark, Republicans have filed a dangerous new lawsuit in Mississippi. So, first, why should people be paying attention to this lawsuit, and specifically, why in terms of the national implications here?
Yeah, so this is a very, very grave and important lawsuit because Republicans have brought this case in Mississippi, not so much because they want to affect Mississippi, but because they are trying to build precedent to affect other states. And so it's a very clever legal strategy. I give them credit. You know, if they go into a swing state with a very, very aggressive legal theory, they figure they're going to attract a lot of attention. They are trying to bring this case in Mississippi. They tried to bring the same case, by the way, or did bring the same case in Illinois and lost. They're trying to find states that won't attract a lot of attention to try to advance these radical disenfranchisement theories, hoping that it doesn't attract their attention. But I got bad news for them. It did, and we're on to them.
So what does this case specifically regard?
All right. So in 2020, you may remember, when we were in the middle of the pandemic, I laid out 4 pillars to protect voting rights in the middle of a pandemic with vote by mail. So there were 4 things that I said were critically important to ensure that we did not have people disenfranchised, and particularly we did not have minority voters and young voters disenfranchised. And one of those 4 was to ensure that people who vote by election day, by mail, if they vote by mail and they put their ballot in the mail or in a drop box before election day, the fact that it doesn't make its way to a polling site or a county office till after election day should not discard that ballot. So in other words, you fill out your mail-in ballot, you put it in the mailbox, it gets postmarked on or before election day. That ballot should count, even if it doesn't arrive until a few days after election day. No one should be disenfranchised in this country due to slow mail. And the fact is, we had DeJoy in 2020 with slow mail. We're seeing reports of slow mail again. And those slow mail processes disproportionately hit communities of color and young voters. And so what Republicans are doing is they are bringing litigation to say, no, 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 no. If it's not received by election day, the ballot can't count. And so they're suing Mississippi because Mississippi's got a law that says if the ballot's postmarked by election day, but it's received within 5 days afterwards, it should count.
But now if they want to try to make this a national standard, and so they sneak this in Mississippi in hopes that it'll, get appealed to the circuit court and then get appealed to the Supreme Court, aren't these specific voting processes only specific to the states that they occur in anyway?
Well, so they're arguing that it's unconstitutional or it violates federal law to allow using a postmarked rather than a received by date. So what they're hoping is they get a quick win in Mississippi, whether because maybe Mississippi doesn't fight so hard, not accusing Mississippi of anything, but who knows, or they beat Mississippi and then they get it up to the Court of Appeals. And now all of a sudden they're making precedent on a more broad basis. And as you say, the US Supreme Court on a nationwide basis. This may sound like a small issue, but here's my message to everyone out there. Elections are not decided by miles. They're not decided by yards. They're not even decided by inches anymore. They're decided by millimeters. And so when you have elections that are decided by 10,000 votes, 7,000 votes, 5,000 votes, changes in rules like this that decrease whose vote by mail ballot gets counted can be the outcome determinative factor in who wins and loses an election. And Republicans know that right now, the people who are using vote by mail at increasingly high rates are members of the military, overseas voters for sure, some elderly, but Democrats are using them. Look at the results of the New York special election that now Representative Suozzi won in New York. It was because of mail-in voting. And what did Republicans do in that New York case? They tried to block that law in New York to allow mail-in voting. So this is part of a broader national strategy to have a war on mail-in voting. And I'm proud that my team is in court. We're fighting them in Mississippi, just like we fought them in New York. And Democracy Docket is covering them every step of the way.
And of course, for those watching right now, if you want to follow along with this stuff, please sign up for Democracy Docket. To Mark's point, it's the free news outlet that focuses on everything voting in elections. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I use it on a daily basis, and it's an amazing resource. So please, if you haven't yet signed up, go ahead and sign up. Mark, obviously this will have pretty major downstream effects if something like this is brought to a higher court and is struck down. How many states have laws that allow election officials to count mail ballots that arrive after Election Day, so long as they were mailed on time?
So 19, plus the District of Columbia. This is a widespread practice.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not the, look, everyone can say, why does California allow it? But Mississippi allows it, right?
Yeah.
This was not a partisan issue. This was for years and years viewed as good government. Good government for Democrats, good government for Republicans. You know who else they're targeting with this? And it's really a shocking thing to see. And, I was struck by the State of the Union address the other night when President Biden forcefully stood up for our men and women in uniform and for freedom in Europe and NATO and the important role that it plays. Republicans sat on their hands. People who think that the Republicans are on the side of the military, they need to pay attention to this Republican Party. Donald Trump badmouthed Nikki Haley's husband because he was serving in uniform, badmouthed John McCain, who is a war hero. Well, who they're targeting here? One of the biggest beneficiaries of these laws are our men and women in uniform who vote from overseas. The mail service is slow domestically, but it's really slow from overseas. And Republicans are willing to sacrifice our men and women serving in military and uniform overseas simply to achieve a partisan mission here. And it's shameful. Just like it was shameful, Brian, when they sat on their hands and didn't clap for protecting freedom in Europe.
Right. I mean, they sat on their hands and didn't clap for any of their professed priorities. I mean, from democracy to NATO, even the border, they couldn't be bothered to clap for anything. I mean, veteran healthcare, Biden was talking about the PACT Act, not a single word. I mean, you can hear a pin drop on the Republican side.
Yeah. I mean, how the Republican Party has managed to become anti-democracy, anti-freedom abroad, anti-veteran, is just a shameful testament to how mindlessly they have fallen in lockstep with this pathological, sociopathic guy, con man.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. But we can't let them do it to our voting laws. And because what they're trying to do is they've adopted his, he woke up one day and said, I don't like mail-in voting, and they all fell in line.
Right.
They all fell in line. And we cannot let them destroy our democracy because they are part of a cult of this guy.
Now, you'd mentioned that your firm is intervening in this case. How do you see this playing out?
So look, I think the Republicans are going to lose. I think that this is like a lot of cases you and I have talked about. They are testing the fence to see where the weak points are. They are trying to figure out, maybe if they sue Illinois, no one will notice. Maybe if they sue Mississippi now, having lost in Illinois, maybe if they sue Mississippi, no one knows. Well, I got a message to the Republicans. I notice. I know exactly where you are. I know where you're in court. I know where you're suppressing the vote. I know where you got your election vigilantes out there suppressing the vote. And we're not going to stand by and let it happen. We will see you in court, and we will see you on Democracy Watch, because Brian and I are going to expose it, and Democracy Docket is going to expose it. And then I'm going to sue you, and we're going to win.
Well, I know there's not a single person that just listens to that isn't grateful for the work you do. So for those folks out there, again, if you're looking for any way to support Marc and his team, the best way to do that is to sign up for Democracy Docket. Again, it's completely free, an amazing resource. I'll put the link on this screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.